Aloha and welcome to the Honolulu Museum of Art's Elements of Art series. I'm Sammy Isidro, a teaching artist at the museum, and I'll be walking through the galleries with you today. You've had a chance to explore texture through objects from the museum's collection and by making art of your own. Now, let's dive deeper. There are so many different types of textures. Remember, texture is the surface quality of the object. You can see it, and if it's a real texture, you can feel it too. Textures can be real or implied. Real textures are made through hands-on acts like sculpting or building, while implied textures use the other elements of arts to create the illusion or impression of texture. Let's take a moment and see how many we can name. I'll start. Textures can be bumpy, smooth, rough, scaly, slimy, or prickly. Now it's your turn. We're going to look at today's first piece. Let's go! Watching over our loose pavilion staircase is Bumpei Akaji's Kanyaku Imin, which refers to the Japanese immigrants that came to Hawaii in the late 1800s. Hawaiʻi-born Akaji was a sculptor. He created large-scale metal sculptures out of copper and brass. This artwork is made from copper that Akaji hammered and welded together. Welding refers to joining two pieces of metal together. Welders do this by heating up the ends of both pieces of metal and fusing or sticking them together. Looking at the artwork, you can see all the different textures this method can create. After hearing about how this artwork was made, do you think the texture is real or implied? If you said real texture, you're right. Since Akaji made this artwork through hammering and welding, which are hands-on acts, the texture is real. What do you think it would feel like if you touched it? We all know we can't touch artworks in a museum, but if I had to guess, I would say this piece feels different than it looks. The texture of the copper looks rough, but I think the metal would feel smooth and warm from the heat of the sunshine. When I step back, I start to see that the forms look like people. I told you that the title of the artwork, Kanyaku Imin, refers to the Japanese immigration to Hawaii. Therefore, we can assume that these people are meant to represent those immigrants. How many people can you count in the piece? How did Akaji use texture to create the impression of the people? What do you think this piece is about? Take a few minutes discussing together as a class. Welcome to the Portrait Gallery. Take a moment and notice the clothes that you're wearing. How does the texture of your shirt differ from the feel of your pants? Take turns naming some of the textures of your clothes. Are they scratchy, fuzzy, silky? Now think about the texture of your skin and hair. How is it different from the texture of your clothes? If you were going to paint a picture of yourself, how would you paint the textures of your face and clothes? This can be a tricky question, because when you're making a painting, you're creating implied texture. Earlier, we learned about implied texture, or texture that is created through using the other elements of art, such as space, line, shape, color, value, and form, to create the illusion of texture. Let's look at how this anonymous, or unidentified artist from the 19th century created implied texture in this painting, Portrait of a Woman. Let's start by looking at the material of her shirt. What type of fabric do you think her shirt is made from? What elements of art has the artist used to capture the shirt's texture? When I look at the painting, I see that the artist has used line to illustrate how the fabric folds. The artist has also used color and value to give the folds of the fabric depth. Let's do the same thing for her face. What elements of art has the artist used to create the illusion of skin? Now, let's compare and contrast textures. How does the texture of the woman differ from the texture of the painting's background? The woman was painted with a lot of different textures, wasn't she? The background, in comparison, is very plain. I think the artist did this, so as viewers, we could focus on the woman and not be distracted by the painting's background. What do you think? This is a sculpture by multimedia artist Nick Cave. It's part of his Soundsuit series, which he makes to address issues of race, identity, and inequality. The suits can be worn and are often used in performances. Now that you've identified the different types of materials in Cave's artwork, let's practice naming the different textures. For example, the piece has sequins sewn into it. We know that textures can be felt and seen, but did you know that they can also be heard? When Cave's sound suits are worn during a performance, they make noise as the performer moves. What do you think they sound like? Scratchy? Metallic? Squishy? How would you feel if you were wearing one of Cave's sound suits? Would you feel awkward because you stand out, or protected because no one can see your face? What materials and textures would you use to make your sound suit? Mahalo for joining me today as we explored texture in the galleries. Remember, texture is all around us, and there are endless types of textures. Next time you're making a drawing or artwork, think about the variety of textures that you can include.